Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today, guys, I bring you the Necromancer. This is a Nightblade healer, and it is a pretty OP one at that. So, one of the things that changed during Somerset was the way we set up the healer builds because of one set in particular, and that's Olram, and the fact that we can wear 2 5 pieces in a monster set. Staves being counted as 2 pieces now really expanded on healers a lot and really gave them a lot of freedom to exercise a lot of different options. So I know a lot of people tend to flow towards the meta setup when it comes to healers. I can't say I do. I don't really like that playstyle, but that's why I'm here. So I'll offer you guys something new. So let's take a look at this. So we are a Dark Elf Nightblade. Dark Elf works really good for this. High Elf's a little bit better on the sustain side, but that's the only thing that it has going for it over the Dark Elf is the sustain. The nice thing about being a Dark Elf is you do get the 6% max stam, so that applies to you as well, and it boosts your stamina pool. And the way we have this build set up, as you can see, we have a 12k stamina pool, 17k health, 39k max stam, or max magicka, sorry, with a 1756 magic recovery. It goes up to 2k when you have a pot going. We have an 1857 spell damage with a 55.6% crit. Now this is where things get a little funny with people. A lot of people say healers don't have to build for crit. But if you do build for crit, you get more consistence of crit heals, which does play into how effective your heals are. So it's kind of a trade-off here. I decided to go with more crit instead of going for more recovery and more spell damage. Or, sorry, more healing stuff. You know, I just wanted something that would work for me the way I play. So, as you can see, resistances are pretty normal. And moving on down here, we have the Thief Munda Stone for the higher crit. We do have Minor Aegis from one of the gear sets that we are running. And it is a pretty easy set to get because it's easy to get a group to run the new trial in Somerset. It's pretty easy to find a pickup group for it on normal, and we're running the light armor set from there, Olram, as our set. Now, Olram's a really powerful set, I'm not gonna lie, but there are other sets if you feel like you don't really want to run Olram, you know, because the weapon damage. I know a lot of people say weapon damage, you gotta have it. It's okay, honestly, it helps, but it's not a necessity. It's not a requirement. That's something that's brought on by the community, and trust me, not necessary. Moving on, we do have Major Prophecy because we do have Inner Light on our bar, and we do have Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Now, you don't have to use Inner Light if you don't want to, but because the way I made this build, getting those higher crits, that's why we have it there. And Witch Mother's Potent Brew does increase our max magicka recovery and our max health and max magicka. So, really good. Moving on to the gear. Now, this is pretty close to a standard meta type setup, but I went with a different 5-piece set than what some people will. So, starting with one of the 5-piece sets. So, starting with the monster set, we are running Bogdan's the Night Flames Besiege. This set is actually, in my opinion, one of the better healer sets to run, because if you have a lot of dot heals like the Nightblade has, this thing will proc pretty often. So it will fire off pretty often when you're in a dungeon or in a trial. You can go with the I forget the name of it, but a lot of people like to use one of the newer sets, and I mean, it's okay. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like using it because I think that the uptime of that set is really low, and I can't remember the name of it for the life of me. Earth Gore. It's a really good one, but the uptime is like every 35 seconds, so it's like, and it's really iffy. So like you can't time this to make it work. You can't time Bogdan's either, but Bogdan's is less of a uptime. It's about the same, but it winds up going. You wind up getting more chances of it firing because of how often you are healing. So this has a good uptime. So that's what we're doing here. We're doing medium and heavy helm, medium shoulders, and then on the 5-piece body we are using Ulrams. Like I said, this is what a lot of people like running. I like this set personally, I do, because it gives you a lot of recovery. It gives you minor Aegis, which does help in dungeons and trials, because this can't be broken down. This is one of the things you have to understand. Any of the minor Aegis, like the minor things you get on the trial sets, doesn't become a multiplicative whatever bonus. It's always going to give you the 5%. So that's really nice. On top of that, when you on the 5-piece, when casting an ability that leaves an effect on the ground in combat, you create a circle of might for 10 seconds. You and your allies in the circle gain major courage for 30 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 258 for 30 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. And it will stay up pretty much all the time, this ability, or this set bonus. The next set we're running is something kind of unusual. Now, on the gear on the body, by the way, before I get into the next set, we are running 3 Infused with 4 Divines. And the reason we're going 3 Infused is to get the tri-stats in here. This will boost our max health. And if we wanted to use dual stat food, we can. And we'll actually go up to 20k health with a 30 or 41k magicka. But that's only if you want to use blue food. But if you use blue food, you will lose a lot of recovery. It's better to stick with the Witch Mother's Potent Brew. And using the tri-stats helps boost your max health pool. So you don't have to use, like, attribute points if you don't want to, that kind of thing. Even though I do have attribute points, I have 4 into here. That's just to get me a little bit more, so I feel a little bit more stable. And if I do get am in a group where there's Eben, I will end up with 19k health. So that's a benefit. So back to the gear. The other set we're running is a 5-piece set, and it's not a common one that a lot of healers run, and that is Combat Physician. The reason I chose Combat Physician is I did a lot of testing with this. So not only do you get max health, you get 2 things of spell crit, but when you heal a friendly target, critically heal a friendly target, you grant them a damage shield that absorbs 9,506 damage for 6 seconds. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So you can have this on somebody every 6 seconds, no matter what. You will be putting a damage shield on somebody for basically just healing them, and they get a damage shield. The damage shield's really powerful too, because it is based off of their resistances. Any shield applied is based on the resistance of the person who it's applied to. So if this gets put on your tank, and your tank already has a shield up, they have another shield. So it's really OP. Next up is the weapons. Okay, on the jewelry, never mind. The enchants is all spell damage, all arcane. You can go with other setups if you want. You can go with reduced spell cost. And if you even wanted to, you could go 3 Infused or 2 Infused and reduce spell cost with like magic recovery. It's really up to you. I like using the 3 spell damage because with a lot of the new changes, increasing your spell damage does increase your heals. So next but not least is the weapons, and on the main bar we are using a weakening enchant. Now I know a lot of people are like, why not a lightning, like a lightning staff, why not use a shock enchant? The reason I'm using weakening on the front bar is so I can keep weakening up all the time. Most DPS, Magicka DPS, will be using a shock enchant, so they'll have a better chance of keeping uptime of that. But my lightning staff will help them get that off balance. So Next up, Restoration Staff. Infused also with a Absorb Magicka. This actually helps us a lot in our sustain. We almost never run out of Magicka if we're on the back bar using a heavy attack, because we get that 461 Magicka when we start the heavy attack, and then when the heavy attack ends, sometimes, not all the times, it will proc another Absorb Magic. So if you watch, because it's infused, if I can get it to actually work. Like I said, it doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen sometimes where you'll get a double proc of the Absorb Magic, and it'll proc twice, and it'll give you 2 things of Magicka back. Happens, like I said, on occasion. But if you just sit here and hold down heavy attack, it'll proc every time you heavy attack. So it's a good way to keep your resources coming in. And if you have, if you're low on Magicka, because of how much recovery you have, and how much you get from your heavy attacks, if you watch here, my heavy attacks give back almost 5k. And then with the Absorb Magic on top of it, I can replenish my Magicka to full in a couple hits. So, and I never run short on Magicka with this build. Alright, so now, moving on to the skills. Starting with Assassination, make sure you get all the passives. Even though you might not have Assassination equipped, any skills, there are a few skills in here that are really good to swap out from time to time. Like if you're playing with a Warden Ice tank, or you're playing with a Staff tank, it's good to swap out to Mark Target instead of using Elemental Drain. And the reason Mark Target is because Mark Target will give you Reaper's Mark, which will grant you Major Berserk, or you can go with Reaper's Mark, and then when the duration comes off, you can see the target in stealth and visibility. But either one of these, like, this will apply both Major Breach and Major Fracture. That's what's so nice about it. So if you're playing with a tank that doesn't have Major Breach and Major Fracture, you can use this instead of Elemental Drain, because you're not giving up too much in resource return. I mean, no, it's at 300, but you can give it up, trust me. It's not bad. So yeah, Reaper's Mark, remember that, or Mark Target. It's a good ability to have because of that Major Breach, Major Fracture, and then when the enemy dies, you heal for 46% of the max health of your max health. So yeah, really good. But yeah, make sure you get all your class passives, because you never know what skills you might want to use on your bars. So, but yeah, weapon passives, destruction staff passives, and restoration staff passives, make sure you get them both. On to the armor. Light armor, get them all. Medium armor, top 2, bottom 1. Heavy armor, top 3. And this is because of the Undaunted passive. You want to get these because this is going to give you 2% max health with the Undaunted passive as well. That's another 6%. So you're going to get 6% or 8% max health with this. With medium armor, you do get the dodge roll here. So that's kind of nice. You don't really need the top 2. And then, of course, light armor is going to make you beast with that. So, soul summons or soul magic, you can take those 2 if you really want to. Fighter's Guild, you just need the persuasive or intimidating presence. And then Mage's Guild, you want persuasive will and Magicka controller, because we are using inner light. And this gives us 5% max Magicka. But with the persuasive will, or sorry, Magicka controller, we actually get the 2% more, so it goes to 7%. And we are in Nightblade, so we also get 9% max, or 8% max Magicka from siphoning, for having a siphoning ability in our loadout. So that's why we keep siphoning ability on both bars. Just so you know. Alright. On to the Sigic Order. Sigic Order does have a really good heal, the Mend Wounds. It's one if you want to use it. I kind of find it difficult to keep this going with other abilities, but you can use this, and if you do, if you take these 2, or all these, and you take Concentrated Barrier, you will get a damage shield you can mitigate with when you block. So it kind of helps. Moving on to Undaunted, make sure you get the Undaunted passives, and then you can use either orb, to be honest, Mystic Orb, or the other one that heals. I like Mystic Orb on this build personally because I think it works better, because I already have enough dot heals. I don't need another one. Alright, and then moving on to the Alliance passives, support. Make sure you get this barrier with the magical aid, because when you're on the front bar, you do get a little bit more magic recovery than when you're on the back bar. Because when you're on the back bar, you're focusing on your healing, and when you're on the front bar, you're focusing on like lightning, your wall of elements and everything. But you get more resource return on the back bar due to heavy attacks. So alright, moving on to racials. Make sure you get your racial passives, and then of course down here alchemy, get medicinal use, and then provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. Alright, now going over the skills on the bar, starting with our first skill, Blockade of Storms. This is where we're going to get that weakening enchant and keep it up. But as you can see, enemies in the target area, 1 second, and setting concuss enemies off balance. So if somebody concusses an enemy with shock enchant, you'll be able to keep them off balance with this ability, or knock them off balance. Next up, we have Funnel Health. This is a super powerful heal, guys. If you look at it, it gives us 57% of our max health back, or the damage back in healing, and it does more damage than Swallow Soul, and Swallow Soul only applies to us. Funnel Health applies to us and one nearby ally. This is kind of like using the staff, Resto Staff regeneration, but we just do this and it gives health to us and somebody else, and it's a pretty nice heal. It's a nice tick heal. Next up, of course, Mystic Orb. This is for resources giving out to our allies, and like I said, I like Mystic Orb because it does damage. It plays well with this. If you want to use the Healing Orb, it's fine, that works too. Oops. Moving on to the next ability, which is Elemental Drain. Like I said, you can swap this out for mark target if your tank is using staves and not using sword and board. You can swap it out. But Elemental Drain applies minor Magicka Steal to an enemy, so it's really nice for your group, for your DPS, your Magicka DPS, to have a resource return of 300, and it's apparently easier for us to do it. So, next up, Inner Light. Again, Max Magicka and the Major Proficiency really play into this really well, so makes us just really kind of yeah, create a lot. And then last but not least on our front bar, we do have Reviving Barrier. And as you can see, it's a very powerful damage shield, and the amount it heals for is a lot. But when we proc our Olorum, the shield goes up. Okay, it's not going up. It did it earlier. Now it's just cheating me. Usually the shield with strength will go up a little bit, but if you pop Warhorn, it will go up. So, but yeah, it gets more powerful. Goes up to like 38,000 on the shield, and then 28,000 on the heal. So it's a really powerful support thing, and you can use this in trials. It's super OP. Moving on to the back bar. Here we have Healing Springs. This is a really good like tick heal. It also gives us Magicka back whenever we heal 3 or more targets, or up to a maximum of 3 targets. For each friendly healed, it gives us Magicka. So it's a really nice sustain on the Magicka side. We also have Combat Prayer, which is a minor Berserk, minor Resolve, and minor Ward on our allies for 8 seconds. This increases their crit damage. It gives them extra physical and spell resist. It's just a nice way to boost them a little bit, and it's a great heal. It's a very powerful heal. This is kind of like our burst heal, but it's our burst heal for people, for a group of people. The next one we have is our burst heal, and that is our Healthy Offering. Now this does cost a lot in health, but it's taken away over time. But you burst heal up to 10k, and it also grants you minor mending for 8 seconds. So as long as you cast this right out the door when you go into an encounter, you can drop your healing springs and heal it right back, and you won't notice the 8 seconds of the health loss because your healing springs is going to cover most of that, so is your other heals. And then you get that 8% minor mending, which allows you to heal for more. So really good there. Next up, we do have Ward Ally. This is a very good shield for you and a very good shield for somebody else. The shield strength is increased by up to 300% depending on the severity of the target's wounds. So if somebody gets hit really hard and you drop this on them, it's going to give them a really powerful shield. And it does prioritize based on who has the lowest health. So I have tested that a lot. Really good shield though. And with healing ward or ward ally losing the heal, like, it's still good, but it's not perfect. So, and it's this, like I said, this is 6k, but if the person's taking a lot of damage, it'll go up. It can go up a lot really fast. Then of course we have Inner Light again for the Max Magicka and the crit. And then last but not least, Aggressive Warhorn. This gives you and your allies 10% max magicka and stamina for 30 seconds. It also grants major force for 9.5 seconds, increasing critical damage for 9.5 seconds. If you can time it with this, you drop this first, then hit Warhorn, or drop Warhorn, then drop this. That way you get the total 8 seconds. Plus this, you actually give them a lot more critical damage bonus for that 8 seconds. So it's a definite thing you want to try and time for. Now, a lot of people will say get Jovials instead of Combat Physician. You can do that on the gear sets, and Jovials will actually make this like 14 seconds long. So it's up to you if you want to do that. Jovials is a good set. Personally, if you go with that and Jovials, you don't need any recovery whatsoever. It's just ridiculous. Alright, so that's that. Let's move on to the CP. Starting with the red tree, we have 66 in Ironclad, 1 into Spell Shield. The 66 in here reduces direct damage by 22%. Spell Shield, this gives you just a little bit of extra spell resist. Moving on over here, we have 1 into Light Armor Focus, a little bit of extra physical resistance. And then we have 31 into Thick Skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%, 56 into Hardy and Elemental Defender. Both of these reducing physical poison, disease damage, flame frost, shock, and magic damage by 12%, as long as you have 56 into both. Certain trials do require you to adjust these, but after doing, and I know this is going to sound odd, but after doing some testing, like, this is like the perfect balance setup for anything. So if you don't feel like changing it, don't. But if you do feel like you're like taking too much damage on the elemental side, you can put more points into this, taking from something else, like from your Hardy, put more points in here. Try to keep this around 8% though, if you do drop it, and keep them kind of in unison with each other. Like, what I mean by unison, like, whatever you take away from something else, put into the other to the percentage that it can go to, and then whatever left over, you can split between your light armor focus and your spell resist. Moving on over here, we have 40 into Bastion. This is increased the effectiveness of our damage shields. We do have 3 of them. We have the one from Combat Physician, we have Barrier, and then we also have the Ward Ally. So really helps to have that boosted damage shield. We also have 19 into Quick Recovery to increase our healing received by 5%. A lot of people say this isn't necessary, but I feel like it is. I feel like it helps. So, moving on, we have 56 in a Warlord, reducing our break free cost, the cost of break free, sorry, by 20%. 26 in a Sprinter, this reduces our cost to sprint by 15%. And because of the new changes to light armor, by the way, the Grace, we get another 15% reduced sprint cost. So we have 30% reduced sprint cost. Sprinting costs us practically nothing, as you can see there. Like, we can sprint for days. So it's really crazy. Alright. Moving on to the middle tree, we have 76 in Arcanus. This increases our magic recovery by 14%. We have 56 in the tenacity, giving us a 12% increase from our heavy attacks on magic return. So really good. And then over here we have 56 in the tumbling. You could put some into Shadow Ward if you wanted to, because you do block attacks. But since we have a bigger stamina pool, I didn't really notice like when I had points in here and not. So that's why this is at 76 and this is at 56, is because I took out of here. Tumbling 56, and because of the 4% we get for wearing one medium, we have a 24% reduced dodge roll cost, which saves us quite a bit in resources. Moving on to the blue tree. We have 56 into Bless. This increases healing done by 12%. 56 into Elfborn, giving us 20% critical healing and damage. You can take away from these other areas I'm going to go into next and put in just a Blessed and Elfborn if you want. But honestly, you give up a lot on what this build can do group-wise. So this is a really, like, again, another balanced, really good balanced setup and a really powerful setup. Because of having the minor mending, we actually get a 20% healing done when that's up because of this. So we get a lot of healing done. Next up, we have 56 in Elemental Expert. This increases Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 12%. We are a Dark Elf, so we get 2% shock damage, and that applies to this, so that's a 14% in shock damage, which is kind of nice because it helps with our lightning staff damage, and it helps us when we're solo playing, killing things. We can just melt them with heavy attacks. We have 6 in the Spell Erosion. This just gives us a little bit of extra spell pin to make our damage dealing a little bit better. And then over here we have 16 in the Staff Expert. This increases our light and heavy attack damage by 10%. Master at Arms 40. This increases our direct damage done by 16%. And just to let you know, Lightning Staff and Resto Staff used to have a thing where their first attack was a direct damage. It seems like they've fixed that, and all the attacks you do now do the same amount of damage. Like they split the damage up between all three. And all three are now considered almost direct damage. I know it's kind of weird. But they don't work that way because they also boost off of Thaumaturge. So your light attacks with a Lightning Staff actually get increased in damage from Thaumaturge. Because when it becomes a channel, it also becomes a damage over time effect. So it boosts the damage of it. It's a small boost, but you notice it when you have points in here. So we put 40 into here for that. And it also affects your Resto Staff. So if you look at my Resto Staff, the heavy attacks all hit for the same amount of damage. Before, it used to tick for one. The first hit would always hit for more. And same thing with the Lightning Staff. But now it's ticking on the end, the heavy attack. You can see it does that little splash damage circle thing. That sometimes will proc for more. So, but yeah, that is the setup for this build. And like I said, this thing can heal pretty crazily. So I'm just gonna do a quick setup here. And you can see, like, I can just sit here and cast all day long on this build, and it barely runs out of resources, but you get a lot of those resources back when you're on on the healing staff. So another thing is that your Wall of Elements can also proc Olorim. Your Healing Springs can proc Olorim, and so can Combat Position. So all three of those can apply the Olorim buff to weapon damage. Now when you're totally buffed up, just so you can see, you go to 2115 spell damage, which is kind of nice. It's a nice benefit to have, because it does boost all of your heals. So all your heals are boosted by that little bit of extra weapon damage. Oops. So yeah, good trade-off there. And then, like I said, you have a lot of crit, and you can see, like when you use like funnel health, you'll see if you crit or not, because the heal that you get from it is going to be bigger. And then with your Wall of Elements, or not your Wall of Elements, sorry, your Combat Prayer, you can see when it crits. Because you get like a 9k heal, unless you're in this, and then you get a little bit more sometimes. Oh, that's why. But if you do this, and then you do your Combat Prayer, you get up to an 11k heal if you get the Major Mending off the Resto Staff Heavy attack. So I always do that. Like, I'll go ahead and throw down a combat, or Healing Springs, and then I'll heavy attack, and then I'll throw down a Combat Prayer, just so I can get that burst heal out if I need it. So, and it also works for your heal here as well. Like, you can get, if you can do your heavy attack and have cast this already, so you have that 8%, you get the 8% plus you get the 25. So you go to 20% healing done, and then you go up to a 45% healing done, and your heals just hit for massive amounts. So that's what makes Templar healers super powerful, is they get really high healing done, because they get minor mending, and then the Resto Staff gives them major mending, so they can heal for a lot. But Nightblades can too. So, but that's the Necromancer, guys. I hope you guys like it. I was going to make a Magicka DPS character called the Necromancer, but I decided it'd be best if I just use this healer build for it, because I'm not going to be releasing any DPS builds. So, but if you guys like the build, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.